everybody. Welcome to this webinar. For today's talk, we'll be discussing how to incorporate positive parenting practices into your daily routines in order to encourage positive behavior and teach new skills. My name is Leah Cruzen, and I'll be walking you through this training today. I'm a psychologist and behavior analyst at the Autism Society of North Carolina. You'll find me in our Wilmington office, and I'm really happy that I can be here with you guys. So without further delay, let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, I know this is kind of silly to put on here because you guys are caregivers. You guys are really awesome at this already, but I just don't feel right giving this talk without saying it. So I'm going to say it. Before we start teaching and before we're really, getting into the nitty gritty of behaviors we want to increase or whatever it might be, we want to make sure that we're always connecting. We connect first before we correct, and we connect after we correct as well. So a couple of different ways to connect. Follow your loved one's lead as far as leisure is concerned and figure out what they enjoy. Engage in these activities with them when you can and build that rapport and increase the rapport over time. So I mentioned before correcting after or connecting after you correct. If you have to give feedback or have to correct them on something, say that you're working on a new skill or maybe they're not on their best behavior for the day, make sure that you're connecting in between those things. That way you're propelling a positive relationship. Another way to connect is to always respect social preferences. So if your loved one loves to play independently, respect the preference. If they want you involved, they're making social bids, leading you over, engage, follow their lead, and don't try to be, too pushy about having things done a certain way when they let you in, right? You just want to be happy that you're there with them in their space and they're happy to have you there. As much as possible, we want to provide our loved ones with schedules that incorporate opportunities to engage in leisure activities. We want to make sure that we're keeping boredom at bay as much as is possible. So avoid relying on the same things over and over again. We want to incorporate variety where we can. That might look like going on different community outings or building a different, schedule for each day or whatever it might be, themed things, especially now that we're kind of in this weird COVID-19 pandemic. You might have to get a little more creative, but luckily the internet is pumping out some pretty amazing resources for that. So yeah, keeping boredom at bay. It's going to be your number one friend when encouraging positive behavior. Trust me on this. And then be a patient listener always. I mean, this is how all of us connect, right? We want a communication partner that is willing to sit and hear what we have to say, or see what we have to say if we're using our hands to communicate, or maybe there's a speech generating device. You know what I mean? Be a patient listener, a patient observer. One of the other meat to the potatoes, I guess, of using positive parenting is using positive language and praise. So we want to notice positive behaviors throughout the day and provide praise, or maybe if praise is not preferred, give hugs or affirmation or acknowledgement in any other way for things that we would like to see increase over time. We often call catch your kid being good, and let those be the moments that you really give your keen attention to. We want to keep our language positive, so that means telling somebody what to do rather than what not to do. Not only is telling somebody what they shouldn't do kind of non-specific, leaving it, open-ended, it also can really wear on the relationship between a parent and a child. So look at kind of framing things in a different way. Not only will it be more specific and direct, it also kind of takes the emotional factor out of correction that needs to occur. And then continually remind the person of their schedule and what they should look forward to on their schedule. So keeping it positive. Maybe they don't love having to go to the dinner table, right? But talk about the things that they have to look forward to. So after dinner, we're going to have an awesome bath. I got bath grounds, whatever it is. And just always focusing on what's something coming up that we can both look forward to together. Another important thing that we should do in order to encourage positive behavior is have your loved one involved in making choices as much as possible. Provide choices throughout the day. And if different activities are not available, make sure that you're providing alternatives that are pretty fair. So if the person wants to go outside and that's not a choice, and you think what they want to do outside is go run around, and you have an indoor trampoline, maybe offering that as an alternative instead. So something active based. Or if it's something that they want to do that might be more creative, provide some sort of alternative that satisfies that same thing. If there are only limited options available, you definitely want to present the options that are available and be very direct about that. Do you want crackers or fruit, right? Rather than saying, what do you want to have for a snack, when there are a number of answers which are not going to be really a choice. So setting folks up for success so that they're not having to be let down or told no. If your loved one likes to usually looks forward to a certain toy or activity, but the schedule has changed, try to let them know ahead of time, and be prepared to identify an alternative activity. With choices, it can be really helpful for folks to have visual support. So you might use a choice board, and that could involve simple pictures, or you can even draw pictures. You might write down a list of things if the individual is a reader, and just let them know straightforward that these are the things that are available right now. I know it's also tricky during this time with caregivers being home, especially if you're working from home. Choice board might involve also the caregivers who are available to play. So even though dad is home or mom is home, it might just be one person who's in charge of the person's care right then, right? So making it clear on the choice board, this is the person who's available to me for play for right now. It's important that at all times we're clear about expectations. We all like to know what's expected of us, so it's important that we have rules for behavior. And this should be something that is reviewed at the beginning of each day, just reminding them if they have a hard time transitioning, or maybe they have a great time transitioning. But it's not fair to correct somebody on something that they didn't know was an expectation, in my opinion. So I would recommend that, base rules be catered to the person. But for example, you could have rules such as having a calm and safe body, or communicating with words instead of behavior, following directions the first time, or asking for a break. So these are going to be catered and, individualized, of course, but just thinking about what are the expectations here. And it might be that we go and we try, and that's fine too. Avoid, just as far as expectations and building expectations, we want to set people up for success, right? So avoid scheduling back-to-back non-preferred activities. I know for a fact that I definitely don't do my laundry and then do my dishwasher and then I do my laundry and then I maybe sit and then I kind of read, or I, pitter patter, and then I do the next thing that I really don't want to do. So the way that you schedule yourself is the way that you should schedule the person that you love and are caring for. Always reward participation, even if it's not perfect. So just trying to do something different is really hard for all of us. And, that goes for folks with autism as well. So honor the fact that they've tried, and keep people motivated and keep folks motivated by intermixing activities with preferred routines. So this is going to be critical. If the entire schedule for the rest of the day looks like drudgery, participation is going to be really hard to come by. At least for me, I don't want to do a whole schedule of drudgery. I don't know about you guys. So keeping that in mind when you're planning things out. Given the scoop on the schedule, so I think it's really important that everybody knows what expectations are. It's also really important that folks understand what their schedule is in a way that is communicated to them effectively and plays to their strengths. So I think with this, we also, need to reiterate, it should suit the communication style of the individual. It might be written, it might be pictures, it could be something super simple. Maybe it's an object. The next thing on our schedule is represent like I'm handing you this spoon because our next thing to do is to eat lunch. So I think everybody being part of the schedule in a way that they can understand it will help everybody to feel a little more organized throughout the day. That structure can be something that's really soothing and calming for folks with autism. Remind of different parts of the schedule after you've reviewed it. So incrementalize. Once you've done, your overview for the day, to the extent that your individual can participate in something like that, like an initial briefing, then use your first then language to describe the events that are going to be occurring. So first lunch, then outside time. That gives an idea of the next two things on the schedule. I always like to keep the then for something to look forward to. So let's say that you have to wash hands, and washing that whole thing is a really, really, really hard time, and you're gonna have to transition back into the living room before they have their iPad. I wouldn't say first wash hands and then living room. I would let them know, first wash hands, then iPad, and transition through that space, knowing that the iPad is available. Just keeping that in mind. You don't want it to be drudgery. You want it to be drudgery, something better. And then let the person choose activities and routines whenever is possible. We want to create supports, and the supports really should benefit the loved one so that they're understanding the answers to these questions. So your visual should always answer these questions of, what do I have to do? How much or how long do I have to do? And when will I be finished? So think about those when you're creating these different things. And you might use different cues, like timers or whatever it is, or just we have to do this one worksheet. So the one worksheet is a representation of what the expectation is, or whatever works best for the learner. But giving those signals, it will be important that there's a definitive beginning and end to certain non-preferred tasks, and that's something that I recommend building in if it's not something inherent to the task already. Okay, moving right along. So it's very important that we deliver clear instructions. And we talked a little bit about this earlier with talking about what to do rather than what not to do, right? But the way that we deliver even those instructions is super important. So just a few key points, which will remove confusion. First things first, before you deliver any instruction, you want to move in within a audible distance of the person. So I would recommend being within 2 to 4 feet. Obtain attention first. So, hey Jack, hey, thanks for looking at me, buddy. I know that you're playing. Hey, will you? So providing praise after you obtain that attention, right? Acknowledging, hey, yeah, redirecting from a task is really hard. I see you. Thank you. Being direct with what the instruction is. So, hey Jack, I need you to put the blocks in the box. So what to do rather than what not to do in the form of a statement, and just being super direct and specific about what it is, so that there's no question of like, hey, will you clean those up, right? That's super ambiguous, especially if I'm not attending to the cues that you're pointing to the blocks at the same time you're delivering a verbal instruction. So put the blocks in the box. Or if your person is not necessarily like a visual learner, or not a visual learner, I'm sorry, an auditory learner, you might gesture the blocks to the box and help them with that task, right? Yeah, so we talked about being direct and being specific, and then acknowledge job well done, right? And any attempt at a job too. If the person's not quite there yet, or if energy is lower for the day, we want to acknowledge that, yeah, I see that you're really trying to listen to the instructions I'm giving. And even if the day is a little bit different, adjust your expectations for the day, or assist. It's really important that we, continue to sharpen communication skills that are already existing, or to develop them in order to sustain positive behavior over long term. With communication, it's the key to, opening up our world. It really empowers the individual in order to be able to ask for the things that they need, whether it be spoken, signed, through a speech generating device. So when you're in times of calm and you're having a great day, you can really work on these things. So here are different skill areas, and this is kind of just a rough list, and we don't have to read through each of these, but just a rough list of ideas of things that you might work on developing communication surrounding. So basic wants and needs, that comes first and foremost, of course. So can the person express their basics? Can they answer yes or no questions, whether it be vocally or with a nod, or can they make a basic choice between two different things? So the skill might be very simple, but working those things in will really empower the person, and make you the number one, make them your number one fan, really. Um, and I mean, it also, it's just important. Um, and then indicating, so we talked about wants and needs, and then indicating social preferences. Can they ask how to be alone? Can they seek attention from others appropriately? Can they access leisure items in the way that they desire? Can they ask for more time with something? Can they advocate for their sensory needs? Do they know what they like as far as sensory needs are concerned, or what might be calming? And can they understand emotions, right? So can they identify those basic emotions, and can they self-identify how they're feeling? This will, really, really help to key in on emotion regulation as a skill in general, but for you to be enlightened as a caregiver as to what's going on with the person. Once you instill some of these skills, especially when it comes to being able to understand some of, one's own emotions, if they can tell you, I'm feeling sad today, then you, of course, as a caregiver, you're going to adjust your expectations, which will only lead to continued positive behavior, and continued positive interaction between parent and child. During these times too, in order to encourage long-term positive behavior, we want to teach and utilize calming strategies. So during this time, you can work on potential calming strategies. So we don't want to do this. We don't want to teach these things, when somebody's upset. Of course, that's not going to be a successful time to teach. But we want to teach deep breathing. Different things work for different people. But some things you might work on are deep breathing, taking a walk, doing relaxation stuff, like countdowns. You might also teach them how to use different sensory tools, and how to seek those things out, or how to seek alone time or space for quiet, or how to seek some snuggles, if they like, that human like interaction and connection when they're feeling a little bit upset, typically. So I would encourage you to practice these activities together, and so that way, you're modeling it and they're able to access that same calming strategy during a time of need. Long term, if the individual can use these calming strategies effectively, that means they're not opting for a more, um, unfavorable or whatever might be behavior to communicate their needs. They're calming and then communicating. So if your individual is having a hard time, it's important that you support them appropriately. So be patient and provide appropriate processing time. Processing time when somebody is upset can triple, it could skyrocket. So it might be that usually your loved one needs only 5 to 10 seconds for processing time. When they're beginning to be upset, it might be a little bit longer. And for you to be an effective communication partner, you need to sit there and wait. Remain calm if your loved one's upset, and use a neutral tone or calm tone if you need to redirect to get back to the task at hand, or prompt communication if you see that they're kind of beginning to really be agitated, or there might have been a triggering event. So have them ask for a rest or break or more time, or time to be alone. These are all very important things. If the person starts to be upset to the point where they're not communicating, I would recommend directing them to a safe, quiet, or calming area. And hopefully this is already carved out, and this is a place where they would want to be. This is not an area where they don't want to be, of course. But in this area, they should be able to access necessary tools. And the area should always be kept of potential triggers, right? So we don't want somewhere that's super loud if the person doesn't like sound. So kind of carving out these areas as well during times of calm will be very important. And then in general, avoid the use of reprimands as much as possible. Reprimands don't really do much to benefit anybody involved, and they definitely can escalate a situation. So if the person had been, having a hard time getting back to calm, once they've been calm for a few minutes, ask if they're ready to resume their schedule, and respect any requests for more time for a rest or a break. I'd recommend during this time staying out of the person's bubble, but within proximity, so that you're there and you're signaled to be available in the event that they do need you. But don't assume that they need you. I would wait and have them take the lead on that interaction. It's really hard to see folks struggle, and as a caregiver, we want to help. But at times we might be kind of invading space when really they need the space to calm. And then once you get back to calm and you resume a schedule, start with small, simple things that don't require the non-preferred transitions or tasks. So these tasks can, like if there are any tasks that are at hand beforehand, if they're important, they can be resumed after full calm. So that's pretty much when the person's able to fully participate. They have normal breathing. They have other indicators that they're fully calm and relaxed. We don't want to be pushing the person too quickly, or you might see spiraling out. Excuse me. Yes, I mean, this is a very, very brief kind of how to help a person when they're having a hard time, but there's a more detailed training which we put out through webinar as well, and it's how to de-escalate challenging behaviors in time of need. I did that one as well, so if you like this one, that one would probably be a good complement. But yeah. That's it for this webinar. If you guys have any questions, I put my email address at the end. These next few slides are going to be COVID-19 resources. And so the Autism Society of North Carolina has combined all of these different resources onto the website under this hyperlink. So if you guys are interested in looking through that information, here's the link below. We also have a number of different social narratives for topics revolving around COVID-19. So these may help in easing anxiety for certain individuals. And these are also accessible on that same hyperlink. And then the UNC Chapel Hill group has put out an amazing toolkit with a number of different modules to support families. I'd recommend giving this link a click through. There's a lot of great tools on here for folks to use. Last but not least, our evidence-based, sources of information, CDC and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. That is it. That resumes our talk for today. I hope you guys really enjoyed and found this to be helpful, and I'm happy to answer any questions or share these slides. This is my email address, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Thank you.